Hey everyone, welcome to a little bit of woo woo. Oh my gosh, my friend Jackleen, the astrologer, amazing astrologer and astrological coach, was on a few weeks ago. You guys noticed this, and she gave a lot of predictions that turned out to be true. So, because the retrograde is such a huge issue, I really wanted to have her back and talk about some other stuff. I've got some questions, and you guys are always asking about retrograde, and we did already talk about that in another episode, but it's such a huge topic. I'm so glad to have Jackleen Holton come back and talk to us about the retrograde. Tell us about what we should know. What's the very first thing you think of?
Wow. So first of all, I'll just start with my general rules of thumb for the retrograde, for Mercury retrograde. I am not a Mercury retrograde alarmist. I'm not going to tell you the sky is falling or that you shouldn't do some of the things that we all have to do, right? We have to sign things. We have to do certain things for work and just to, keep the lights on, right? So I'm not saying don't do those things. I'm just saying that there can be some interesting events that happen during a Mercury retrograde, and communications is just about everything. Mercury is the planet that rules communications. And what is communications, you ask? Well, it's what we're doing right now. It's any emails, texts, phone calls, any media whatsoever, right? It's your right, the letter you write to your long lost cousin. It's it's any kind of communication. And it's also commerce, so selling things. If you have a business, it's, there gets to be sometimes some gum in the works, right? I always tell people that the day Mercury goes retrograde or direct is a day to kind of really be mindful, because that's the direction change day. And we've already had that. So we're in the thick of it right now. And here I am doing a podcast in this. I was just listening to our podcast about the dragon year, and I think we're right on track with what I was predicting for the dragon year with all these twists and turns. Guess what Mercury retrograde is going to do to that? It's just going to bring more and better of those, right? More and more interesting. So Mercury is all about the mental acuity. It's the way your mind works, your thought processes, learning everything. So we're going to have some crazy thoughts. There's going to be some crazy words spoken out there in the ethers, right? The news is going to be interesting, which is what the media wants. They want this whole thing, this election year, this dragon year kind of election to be a horse race, and they're going to get that by any damn means they can, right? And so we're going to see a lot of that. We're going to see misinformation, unfortunately, is at an all-time high. Well, one of the all-time highs. And so you have to the markets are really, really fluctuating right now. So we're going to see a bit more of that as well. Don't freak, maybe just don't have the most riskiest investments ever. Maybe if you stick to the S&P 500, or maybe, just a kind of more wide-ranging funds, you might, weather the storm a little bit better. But yeah.
Well, it's funny you mentioned it. So the first day of retrograde, I love that you mentioned the first day of retrograde. I had both the most retrograde and the most Oregon thing happened.
Okay.
They said it was a squirrel. took out the power. Squirrel and a power box took out the power for 3 cities. We're not talking about, tons of people. It's Oregon. It's not that many people, but 3 whole cities and they know it was a squirrel because they found it, so love it.
Is so amazing. That is an example of a little trickster getting in the works, just gumming up the works just enough to cause a big, we had that whole thing happen with airports, and, that was kind of in the storm of Mercury retrograde when that happened. So this one has had a longer shadow. I usually am pretty conservative with this. Just a week before. So don't do any major important things. But it was a little longer than that. So we've been having some crazy stuff going on, and it can only get more dramatic, because when the retrograde actually started on the day of the new moon. And here's what astrology is all about. It's those little changes, like a lunation, a new or full moon. I'm trying to write an article right now kind of about the dark side of the new moon, because I always really hype up the new moon and say, this is going to be so positive. Oh, wow. It's what we've been waiting for. We've had a crappy 2 weeks, and now we're going to get some respite. And that usually is the case, because the sun and moon are right there together. They're in harmony. They're cozied up, right? But I had just the craziest thing happen at the last new moon that sent me for a loop. It was a call from someone that had my cat that I knew had run away. And I mean, I would see her every once in a while. I'd stop, pet her, whatever. And well, I got a call from a pet hospital and somebody had brought her in, wanted to adopt her. And I was like, oh, you have her. Why don't you try and you can bring her back to us? And so he brought her back, and really nice guy. And within a couple hours, I knew it wasn't going to work. She just wanted her freedom so bad. I didn't want to have her cooped up, and she didn't get on with other cats. That's her whole thing. The reason why she left to be wild is she just wanted to be wild and not with other cats, right? So she got out, and I was devastated after this horrible trauma. And there was this whole drama whether he was going to adopt her. He ended up not adopting her, but it all worked out for the best because now I know where she lives. And every time I go there and I go, Lucy, I can give her food. And so the best thing happened, but it was so traumatic at that time. And that's what happens when there's a little change. You've already got big powder keg stuff out there, and then there's just the slightest change. You'd wanted to talk about weather today. I was like, oh my God, I'm not.
Oh, not weather. Weather, drama. I mean,
weather,
whatever.
trauma, those kind of things. I say, oh, I'm not good at that. But then I remembered my mentor, Victoria Bearden, one of my mentors in astrology, predicted the Northridge earthquake. And so I went back and looked at that chart. She said what set that off was kind of a very similar thing that set off 9/11, is that one planet moved into a new sign. And that was one of the two where there were already major powder keg things happening. There were two or more big aspects happening. And then like the sun, the moon, or Mars moves into a new sign, and it's off to the races with some of these things. So I don't know where it was. Oh, the lunation, the new moon, that's supposed to be so positive in that situation with the cat. I probably told this story on your podcast before, but I was having a new moon circle in Hillcrest at my old office, and my car was stolen that night. It was the night of the new moon. Of course, that's why they stole my car, because it was dark.
Yeah, it's dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime something changes like that, a full or new moon, or you've got a bigger planet moving into, or even just the moon, depending on how much other kindling is around, right? Something is going to happen. So I've seen that time and time again. And so that's why I was looking at those two charts. Say we're in this kind of time where, first of all, there have been some earthquakes, and there will probably be some more, even as soon as next week, because there's lots of stuff going on. And then we've got Mercury, which is retrograde in Virgo, Virgo is a wonderful sign to have a Mercury retrograde in, because you can then go and do stuff that you hadn't wanted to do before. And you can do stuff that you would have thought was kind of boring before, or you can do writing if you're a writer, that kind of stuff, or revising your work. I always think the rule for Mercury retrograde: revise, research, repair, those kind of things. So you can do all that kind of stuff when it's in Virgo, but I believe it's the 14th that it is, that it moves into Leo. It retros back into Leo. And so we get some drama around the 14th and 15th that I wouldn't be surprised to see some events happening, whether that be earthquakes. We do have a bit going on with the Earth right now, with where Uranus is in Taurus and it being aspected. So I would not be surprised to see some interesting weather events coming up in that we're in, first of all, the dragon year, right? And the Pluto return of the US, right? We can't overstate that we're in this time of great change. So I imagine we'll have some drama in the political sphere. Imagine that, drama.
I'm surprised. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I thought this was going to be such an easy, boring election.
What'd you say?
I thought this was going to be such an easy, boring election. And no, here we go.
No, it wasn't going to be. I didn't exactly have on my bingo card the way it happened, but because one of the things I remember saying on that not the last podcast, but the first one I did about the dragon year is that, it's transform or die. We're either going to have a lot of transformation or death, to democracy, to our way of life, whatever, right? Looking a little bit more hopeful now that it might
Yeah.
be the first kind of transformation. You know, I mentioned about the national prayer of the Pledge of Allegiance, coming closer to that. That's really what I think we want to do. So that may be possible.
Well, I love what you said, because I mean, intuitively, I have been seeing the Democrats winning. And when I was seeing that, around January of the year, I was like, I wasn't sure. I wasn't necessarily seeing it being Biden, though, and so that's why I think one of my predictions too was, I think we're actually going to get two different candidates. Like, I wasn't sure. I definitely saw Trump being replaced. I felt like he was going to have a health issue, but
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't. Nobody was seeing lead poisoning. Let's put it that way, in their charts. But I was definitely seeing a health issue, something with his heart, is what I was feeling, and that may still come to be the case. But it's interesting you bring up all of these different moons and things moving. Is there any other? The 14th is the one we should be concerned about. You said like one little planet moving.
Well, what happens? Let me put my reading glasses on real quick here. But on that day, on the 14th, we have a number of things happening because we've got Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is usually a good planet, but Mars is lining up with Jupiter, and that can be a little explosive at first. Jupiter, usually it comes to good. Generally, I say, well, Jupiter, you almost can't go wrong with unless it's a matter of excess, too much of a good thing, too much of anything, really. And then we've got some little might look like some aftershocks with the moon then coming over in opposition to Jupiter and Mars, because they're in that conjunction. So we could see some interesting stuff on that day. We could see some on the next day, the day before, day after, I always think. But yeah, there's a lot going on. I mean, I was looking at the chart of this new moon, and we do have some planets in aspect, and those major planets, well, they're in a good aspect. Uranus and Pluto, they're nonetheless in aspect. So things are going to happen. Is that going to be the earth shaking? Well, it could be, because then we've also got Jupiter and Mars coming together. At the time of the new moon, that was in harmony. Everything looked cool. But that's going to start moving closer. That's going to start being a little bit more interesting. So there's definitely going to be, with Mercury and everything, there's going to be a lot new information coming out. Perhaps this is some scandalous stuff. We always see this getting really close to the election, more things being revealed. I don't care who you are as an astrologer. It's always to see it better, easier to see it better from the back end, like after it's already, that's why. But just watch when things change. Like, for example, when Mercury moves into Leo on the evening of the 14th, that can be a little bit of a drama, especially since we've already got Mercury events, right? So this, I look at, I always recommend this. I look at it as alongside my charts. I recommend this book, but I usually look at things from three different, perspectives. And when you see like all these aspects, that's an eventful time. And generally eventful means crazy. It doesn't necessarily mean all good stuff, like you asked me a little bit, I got your email about lucky days, and tomorrow's a lucky day because there ain't nothing going on. Right?
Oh, right then. Yeah.
Sometimes no news is good news in astrology. And I'm telling you, more often than not, I'll say, hey, today's really going to flow pretty smoothly because we have no exact aspects. It's almost kind of like getting it under the radar, right?
So we are recording. So guys, we are recording this on 8/7. So tomorrow is going to be 8/8. So you're saying that's a lucky day?
Yeah, I think that is a lucky day.
We'll
but even better I like these little tiny windows of moon luck, basically, is what I call it. And Friday, August 9th, we've got some moon luck from 10:25 to 11:25 a.m. I don't know if you're going to put this podcast out before then.
I'm gonna, as soon as it renders, as soon as we're done.
Okay, I can put it
As
out
soon as
to
we're done, guys.
my people and stuff. And yeah. So on Friday, 10:25 to 11:25 a.m., that's the moon coming into contact with Jupiter. Let me just double check that. Put my lovely granny glasses on here. Yeah, it comes into trine with Jupiter, which is a very favorable aspect. Jupiter, it almost doesn't matter if it's favorable or unfavorable because it's all good, at least in the end game. But this is good all the way through. So we like that moon. And then we've got speaking of Friday, then the rest of the day, just chill out because the moon is void, of course. Is that right? I'm going to go look at it. Yes. So that's even like, if I could tell anyone anything to why to get this book or to follow me on Patreon or, whatever, be up on astrology yourself, is don't do important stuff during a void of course moon. Don't have surgery. Don't get married. Don't even get your hair cut during a void of course moon. Certainly don't sign important documents. It's kind of worse than Mercury retrograde because one of the things I like to say about Mercury retrograde is there's this reversible quality to anything that happens during a Mercury retrograde, right? Like, okay, you can probably get your hard drive back that all got erased if it got erased during the Mercury retrograde, but it's going to be very painstaking. Or you can probably get that relationship back with your cousin that you pissed off. But a lot of groveling, apologizing, and cleaning out garages and stuff for them, right? Or whatever. So it's painstaking, but you can get things back oftentimes that you lose during a Mercury retrograde. So that's one of the aspects of it. Another is just extreme creativity. So
I love the creative aspect of Mercury in retrograde because I have always used that energy to write. Sometimes what I write is garbage. I mean, everybody who writes knows what I'm talking about. If I spend too long on it, it's usually trash. But so you're saying on 8-9 or after in the evening after that, it is kind of a void time when maybe
the moon goes void about, looking at this, 2:45 p.m. here in California.
Pacific. Okay, 2:45 Pacific.
So from then on, just chill.
It's Friday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So don't try to do any major stuff because you got the Mercury retrograde. I'm like gesturing over here when it's really over here. We've got the Mercury retrograde and we've got the moon void, of course. That's a double whammy for stuff going wrong. So I would want to know when the moon's void, of course, especially during the Mercury retrograde. But I would also like to know those bright spots, like those when we have these little hours that the moon is shining favorably on something like Jupiter, just like the time I just mentioned. So that's a good one. Or a day like the 8th tomorrow, which is, there's not much going on in terms of aspects. So that's kind of lucky. The 15th is pretty lucky, even though it's a void, of course, moon for a long part of the day. And I should have looked a little bit more. For most of the day, we have a void, of course, moon on the 15th, but it's actually a lucky void, of course. So that because there are 4 signs in which the moon is really lucky, and that is Sagittarius, Cancer, Pisces, and Taurus. Those are the 4 lucky moon signs. Doesn't mean if someone born with those moons are any better than anyone else, like poor me with a Virgo moon, right? But it means that when the moon is transiting through those signs, it's just a little better. Things are a little bit better, and it's particularly if there's other good aspects. So I always let people know when the lucky day.
I love what you're saying. So is it just my imagination, or has this retrograde been harder and faster and more intense than normal? Or is it depending on which sign your signs in your own chart?
Yeah, some people you're going to sail right through it because it aspects nothing in your chart. Remember, no aspects, no news is good news, right?
Okay.
Or it aspects something positive, and while you might have had a little incident with your car breaking down, you got some benefit from that, or you were in the right place at the right time because of that, or it happened at a fortuitous time and nobody was hurt and you were able to go on with your day, whatever. So whatever happens, if it's aspected positively or not at all, you'll have a pretty decent Mercury retrograde. If it's like for me, it went retrograde right over my you know, Virgo stuff, and I was like, oh no, you know. But yes, this one hasn't been so bad, but just wait till it gets into Leo, because then it kind of
Yeah.
amps up the drama.
Interesting, because that's right. You know, the DNC is meeting on August 19th.
Okay.
So that's a few days after that happens.
Oh, the full moon. The full moon
Okay.
is August 19th. So
Okay,
they're
so
meeting
there you
on
go.
the full moon.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's when it starts. So
let's
it's
just keep it interesting, okay? But that's energy. There's so much energy right now in the politics where there maybe wasn't so much before, right? Two old guys slugging it out. And now we got this more vibrant ticket over here, and then the other guy, old guy.
I'm still trying to figure out, and guys, I don't mean to sound old, but I'm still trying to figure out when it became all right for politicians to not look at the issues at all and instead throw dirty names at each other and just let's not talk about the issues. Let's just call, you know, the opponent crazy and not talk about how we're going to make the world better. I'm like,
you know, not. I mean, I like that. I think it happened that moment where you're no Jack Kennedy. You remember that moment? I believe it was a vice presidential debate between Dan Quayle and the other guy.
Feels like we should know who. Yeah, you're right.
Or something like that. You know,
I forgot about that.
And even though Quayle and Bush won, he really got burned because he was comparing himself. Dan Quayle was comparing himself somehow to Jack Kennedy, and the other guy comes out. I don't know if that's who the guy was. It was whoever it was.
Dukakis, was it?
Dukakis?
Somebody's yelling at their TV right now. And
is it Benson or okay?
Somebody's yelling because they know who it is and we don't know, and it's on the tip of our tongues. Yes. Yeah, I think you might be right.
No, Jack Kennedy. So that may have opened the door, but the door has been blown completely off the hinges with today's politics. But
it's so and you know, as an intuitive yourself, you know, I know you've done intuitive work. When you're tuning into politicians, guys, it's like the dirtiest, grossest. It doesn't matter if it's your white guy, right? It's still kind of just gross energy tuning into politicians.
Yeah, I don't tune into them that way. I like to look at the charts, and
that is so much better.
You know, and
so much smarter.
I've got to tell you, Kamala Harris's chart is, you know, from what I haven't studied it for a long period of time, but I just put it up today and was looking at it, and it's very interactive. It has a lot of aspects. There's a lot going on energetically in that chart. And that's kind of what you want, I think. I mean, for better or worse, you'd rather have someone not boring. And that's a not boring chart. She's got a lot of opposition. She's come from, I think, relative, you know, I don't know if it was rags to riches necessarily, but kind of a harder background, and that shows in the chart. You know, you've got some squares, you've got some oppositions, but you've got some wonderful trines as well, and to Saturn at that. And she was born during a full moon, like during a full moon, like when it was happening. So it will be interesting to see. She's her moon is 27 degrees Aries, and I always identify people by the moon, which that tracks, right? Aries. And her sun is Libra. So that's a diplomatic. And you do have those worrying a little bit. Didn't know when to laugh. Didn't know whether to laugh at that couch joke that Tim Walz made, but it was great. It was a funny joke. J.D. Vance is just sitting on his couch.
Trust me, they have fired plenty of shots at the Democrats that were equally as disgusting. So yes, yes.
Oh my God, yes. Well, she laughed, and you know, but I love that opposite. I love that we have a full moon candidate here. Like she's gonna bring it. She's just gonna bring it. You can't be born during a full moon. Okay, and I'm gonna talk about what during a full moon means. She's got 27 degrees and 48 minutes of Libra, her sun, and then her moon is 27 degrees and 39 minutes. That's so close, right? That's just a couple minutes off. So she was born during that full moon.
Whenever I've intuitively turned into her, because that's how I do it, as I intuitively tune in, I always get that she doesn't suffer fools, that she can handle arguments,
Yes.
and she can laugh at their stupidity. I do get the impression she's dealt with a lot of prejudice, and men didn't like dealing with women her whole life, and she has risen to the occasion and just enjoyed the fact that Kamala doesn't rhyme with anything.
Yeah.
Kamala doesn't rhyme with anything. I mean, I've always getting that impression that she just sort of laughs, and I feel like it's a worthy opponent. And it's sad that we may or may not see a debate. I don't know. I would love to have seen one, because I would have loved to have watched her spar with someone who likes who has a very different approach than she does. But
well, I guess it will all boil down to whether the other person in the race, whoever it may be, has the courage to debate. And here it is, a dragon year. So I would, if he's watching, encourage him to go and do it. And
I did find it interesting. Tell me, I don't know if the astrology shows any of this, but I did find it very interesting that Trump went to that Black journalist convention and to speak. And I got the distinct impression when I was watching him do it, is that he knew he was going to get flayed alive, but it was just like he just did it for attention. I was just like, it's the only thing I could think of, because it made no sense.
I don't know. That baffled me a little bit, but all I can think is perhaps he thinks, well, I can easily handle this crowd, or this is, I can. And I think he has a sense of him being charming that maybe other people don't particularly share. I don't know. Like a sense of, he has charisma. I will give him that.
No question.
He has charisma. But I think that charisma is a very specific charisma that is really to a certain, like a male, largely male population.
And it also almost feels like, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe, feel free to disagree. It almost feels like a Mad Men crowd, like the people from that Mad Men show, the Mad Men show, that generation, that kind of misogynistic. I don't know. He's not my guy. I don't think that's a secret. But I will, having said that, before you put all kinds of comments down there, I will say that I don't agree with everything the Democrats do either. So I stand a little bit in the middle in some issues, and but yeah, I would honestly say he is not my guy.
Yeah, well, I'll have to admit he's not my guy either. He's definitely an interesting cultural phenomenon, and
that's a good way of putting it. Yeah,
I think our choices are so polarized this year, right? It's like either, I don't want to say good or evil, but like
I know.
We're gonna be this America, or we're gonna be that America. Which is it? So that's kind of the horse race that's being set up right now. And
well, it sounds like it's playing out a lot in the astrology too, with all this chaos energy that what you're describing with this dragon year, with this all of this astrological events happening right about the time when we're really getting close to make the decisions, or really who's ending up on the ballot is being made. That decision is being made right now.
Kamala Harris is a dragon.
Interesting.
I noticed that before, but yes, she will be 60 years old on October 20th.
Interesting. See, I see her. I thought she was just a childless cat lady, but
yeah.
Somebody's gonna make a T-shirt if they haven't already.
Oh yeah.
And I'll probably buy one. Anything else we need to know about the retrograde that I didn't think to ask? Anything?
About
anything you want to tell us?
I've said this before, and I probably even said it on your show, because it's one of my favorite things to say about the retrograde. It's like being drunk. Sometimes you have the greatest ideas when you've had a few beers, and most of the time it's complete shit. Sorry, was I not supposed to say that?
I don't care.
So write it down. Write down all the ideas that you come up with during the retrograde, whatever occurs to you, particularly if you hear it in your dream or intuition, or just write it down and then look at it once we've gotten a safe distance from the retrograde, which is probably going to be about September 7th-ish.
Okay. Yeah, that was my next question.
That's when I was calculating it for, is like, we're going to feel like, oh, okay, we're finally out of the shadow of it. So yeah, look at it then, sort of what I would call the light of day and see, does this still make sense to me? But you may have some wonderful ideas. There's all the transits out there are contributing to good ideas, and everyone has gotten an intuition upgrade. It's just, are you going to accept that? Are you going to use that? Are you going to trust that? Are you going to stake something on it? So that'll be an interesting question that we can all ask ourselves. What are we going to do with this intuition we got? Are we going to shove it under the rug, or are we going to look at it, examine it, maybe research, revise, redo, all that kind of stuff during the Mercury retrograde. And yeah, kind of bide your time a little bit. Unless the angels are, I always said that, I did say this before, unless the angels are comforting, unless it just feels like from your heart, not like I have to, not from the ego, but from your true self. Okay, I got to do this. I got to make this move. But chances are you're getting ready to make a big move.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, one thing I've observed with Mercury retrograde over the years is that, things have happened to me, things have been lost, but they always come back before the end of it. Like you said with the car. Did your car show up?
My car did not come back.
Okay.
It ended up in a chop shop. I wrote a poem about it, and I love the poem. And it was one of my first great publications, like big publications. And I got a better car. And now I feel like I burned off my car karma, because my husband works for a car company and we get a new car every year, right? We get a new lease every year. And so I feel like, okay, I burned off my car karma. So it did in its way come back. But it was a very emotional experience, because I had that car, like I was holding on to things. I had that car for 16 years, loved that car so much. And the cat in her way came back, we were about to lose her to this adoption that would take her to Irvine. That didn't happen. She's right down the street. It did work out, but painstakingly.
I get that. Yeah, I get that.
It's these interesting things that happen, not just Mercury retrograde. That wasn't Mercury retrograde. That was more the new moon and other crazy things. But I would say this Mercury retrograde, be creative, get in the creative zone as much as you can, whatever that is for you.
And that's one of the things you help people with, because you are an astrological life coach. Full disclosure, I've gone to Jackleen for things. I've been really especially helped by her lucky days. I've gotten lists of those, and I will share with you guys. I went to her for a list of lucky days because I wanted to reach out to somebody that I wanted to partner with on a project. And I got a list, and I'm like, okay, I picked the best time zone for me. Sent the email, and I'm like, they're never going to respond. Yeah, they responded within a few hours. Oh my God, we were looking for somebody to partner with on this issue. And it's stalled right now because it's retrograde. And of course it's stalled, which is funny, but it's probably still going to happen. I'm just sharing this because this is no joke here. These lucky days, this information on how to if you're going to send that email, if you're going to be sending a bunch of emails, inquiries for jobs, what's the best day or what's the best time window to be sending those out so you can have the best chance? I mean, it's just, and that's definitely something that Jackleen can help you with. She certainly helped me with it. And her poetry books are amazing too. So how can they get a hold of you? I'm going to put it in the description, but you can just tell people.
JackleenHolton.com, and you can schedule an appointment online now. I've gotten into the century. So I listened to a couple podcasts ago and said, oh yeah, I'm doing that now. So there's my dragon year, one of my dragon year goals.
And it's just JackleenHolton.com. I mean, you can see it on your screen right now. Just add the .com. That's her name. And right? Okay, there you go. And it's also linked in the description. So final thoughts? Anything final you want to say, or does it feel complete?
Would just say kind of what I said, because I was listening to that podcast again. Your power is so multiplied this year, and so what little thing can you do to make the world a better place, to make your own world a better place, to follow whatever it is that's really calling to you, even if it's just in tiny ways. I call them token starts, because that's what I tell people after every new moon. And we just had a new moon on Sunday. Yeah, it came with a Mercury retrograde. What do you want, right? There's never a perfect time in astrology. I'll add that caveat. So do these little token starts in the areas that are important to you, and you never know what will happen. I had a friend last year write a book just by doing 20 minutes a week.
Love
So
it. Yeah, love it.
that's the kind of thing we're talking about.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay, well, with that, thanks guys for watching. If you have questions for either of us, go ahead and put them in the comments. Jackleen has her own show too. You can actually go to her website. She's got a Patreon. Is it Patreon or?
Oh, it's not it's a show yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't use the right word.
It's not a podcast. I'm not a podcast yet, but here I'm saying I don't have a podcast. And last time I said I don't have something, I got it now. So who knows? But I do have a Patreon page. It's like a real niche market for people who want these lucky days, basically, that, it's general lucky days, but still, everybody's more happy during these times. And they're bright spots during the Mercury retrograde, especially. Exclusive articles, things like that. Yeah, I might do more videos. Who knows? We'll see what comes.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks, like and subscribe. And I most appreciate your support. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.